Alright, what's going on, people? This is going to be kind of a rant on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I'm basically going to be talking about the villains. Now, when I say Marvel Cinematic Universe, I'm not just talking about the Marvel Studio movies, I'm talking about the stuff that Fox and Sony owns as well. And like I said, the villains. The villains, we need to get better villains. Like, seriously, we need to get better with these villains in the movies because I feel like they're really wasting time and they're playing it too safe with some of these villains. Um, and some of them have been overused. Like in the X-Men films, my problem is basically you keep using Magneto over too much. There's plenty of other villains in the X-Men franchise you can use, but they keep going back to Magneto. Let's get Apocalypse. Let's get Sinister. Let's get someone else. Give me somebody else that we haven't seen on film before and make them an actual villain that you're going to remember. Not just a villain, but make them a character that you're going to remember. Have them with really good motivations because I feel like also the motivations for a lot of these villains are very, very generic and they're not really compelling motivations. Like they're very, very, oh, I'm evil and now I'm gonna kill you. It's very, very unappealing to me because they have so much potential. These characters to go really in depth into them and make these villains like really compelling and make you think about things. Make you think, wow, okay, maybe this person was right or maybe he was wrong or stuff like that. Villains that you're going to remember, not ones that are just throwaway villains that you're not going to care about once you've seen the movie. Now, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this is a really big problem, especially now that Iron Man 3's come out. My biggest problem with the Marvel Universe, the Marvel studio movies villains, is that I feel like they're playing it too safe. Now, first, I'm gonna get on Loki because I talked about Loki before. My problem with Loki is I feel like his motivations are very, very eh. Now, in Thor 1, his motivation was basically daddy problems. Like, he had daddy problems. Daddy didn't give him the throne. He gave it to basically, the next heir was basically Thor. And, Loki, I guess, kind of feel like, oh, I deserve what Thor has. And then he basically just goes evil, after that. And I'm like, okay, that's an okay motivation, but I just feel like he failed as a villain. Like, I don't remember much about him besides that. And even in the Avengers, what's the most you remember? What is the most thing that everybody talks about with Loki? How he got thrown around like a rag doll by the Hulk. And I've said this before. That takes away from. I mean, the fact that he was thrown around like a rag doll wouldn't have been so bad if Loki would have kind of took it more like a man. If it wasn't played up more as a joke, because it was basically a joke scene. It was a funny scene. It was funny. I'll give it that. It was very, very funny, like I said before. But that scene takes away from the seriousness of the movie, the tone of the film. It completely switches because it's played up as a joke, and you're like, oh, okay, so this villain really isn't much. Like I said before, if it wasn't for the Tesseract, the if it wasn't for that and teaming up with some more generic aliens, Loki could have been defeated easily. I mean, the only reason the Avengers needed to assemble is because it became a global threat. Because basically, like I said, Loki had the Tesseracts, and with the Tesseract or the Cosmic Cube, basically you can do anything with that. And then he teamed up with some other cosmic villains, and they just came to New York and started destroying New York. And that's pretty much it. Like, and after that, Loki is pretty much done. All the destruction in the film really was done by the aliens, the generic aliens, the Chitauri. Loki himself was just kind of meh. And I feel like they could have done so much more with him. They could have made him more sinister. They could have, I mean, and besides killing Agent Coulson, not really much else to the character. Uh, and then they're saying Agent Coulson is supposed to be alive, so I'm hoping that's not true. But then that would take away his villainy even more if Agent Coulson is alive. So it's I'm hoping that in Thor: Dark World that we really get to see Loki do something really menacing and really crazy that's gonna drive Thor over the edge. Like I said in my video about Thor: Dark World. And then we have the other villains like Red Skull. Somebody said, I think it was PM Night. I think PM Night said it the best. He said that Red Skull was much more menacing before he revealed he was Red Skull. And I have to agree with that. I think Hugo Weaving was much more menacing without the makeup and stuff on. Then when he put it on, he just kind of became a generic, I must destroy everything villain. And I feel like his character could have been something much more than that. And like PM Knight said, he was much more threatening and menacing before he revealed he was Red Skull. Although I do like Captain America: The First Avenger, they could have done so much more with the Red Skull. I'm not saying it has to be ultra violent. I'm not saying it has to be ultra dark. But you do have to take liberties, and when I say take liberties, you need to amp up the villainy in these characters. And you gotta amp it up. These are villains. These are not supposed to be jokes. These are supposed to be people who are causing trouble and trials and tribulations in these superheroes' lives. They're willing to do all types of form of atrocities to get what they want. And you have to play that up in these films. I'm really getting sick of these jokes. And that's another thing I want to just kind of do in a mini rant here is the comedy in some of these movies really needs to stop, especially in the Iron Man films. Second one, it didn't work for me. Third one, it didn't work for me. The scene in Iron Man 3 where it's revealed that the Mandarin isn't really the Mandarin. And then Adrian Killian, I think I'm saying his name right. Hope I'm saying his name right, because I already forgot the character. That's how much I remember about him. When he says, I am the Mandarin, I'm like, you are such a generic 90s villain. Like, I'm not even remotely afraid of you. Like, I'm not even remotely like, wow, he seemed more like a henchman than an actual big boss villain. You know what I'm saying? He just seemed like a very, generic henchman that you would beat up. And, it's not very compelling. It's boring. Yeah, it's entertaining, but I need more than entertainment. I need you to do something with a character, a villain that's going to make me go, wow, okay, this guy is not to be joked around with. He is all about business, and he is going to bring down the house, and people are going to get hurt. People close to you are going to get killed, and things like that. We need to improve on that. I've already touched on Iron Man, I touched on Thor, the X-Men films. Spider-Man. Even in the Raimi films, Green Goblin was okay. He was okay. I thought Doc Ock was great. The scenes where he did the stuff on the train, and when it was first revealed that the device he had on his neck was like destroyed, and so the arms started talking to him and kind of controlling him mentally. I was like, yeah, that's cool. Doc Ock was really good, but in the third films, they fucked that up, so I'm not even gonna get on that. But we get to the Amazing Spider-Man, and again, the Lizard is a very compelling villain in the comics. They've done some really interesting stuff with him. Even in the animated series, they've done really good things with the Lizard. I mean, this is a villain you can really do something compelling with him, but in the movie, The Amazing Spider-Man, he ended up being very generic, bland, and just uninteresting as a villain. He's easily just forgetful for me. What's the other franchise they come out with? Blade. Blade has some alright villains. The Hulk. The Hulk. I think the Hulk has had some okay villains, but they're also kind of bland and generic in the movies. What these Marvel movies need is, they really need to start. They need to take a step back and take a look at these villains in the comics. Really examine these characters and really see the potential that these characters have, and do something more than just, oh, I'm evil, I'm gonna destroy shit. Uh, Give them motivations that's going to make them as equally as interesting and compelling as the hero. I mean, they said this before. What is a hero? What is a hero without a villain? You know, one of the things I know. I hate to bring this up in a Marvel video, but hey, it's a comic book, so whatever. Batman, in the Dark Knight, in the Nolan films, those villains were very compelling, especially in the first two films. You had Ra's al Ghul, who was great in that movie. Liam Neeson nailed that shit great, and his motivations were very, very, very interesting because his whole thing was Gotham is beyond saving. Why try to save a city that's so corrupt? And in a way, you can kind of see yourself agreeing with that because the city looks so corrupt, and you're convinced that the city is so corrupt, and you're like, you know what? Maybe he's right. Now, I will say that Scarecrow was a little bit generic, but even he had moments where you're like, okay, this guy is not to be fucked with. Especially with his gas, it's like damn, his fear toxin. Very, very interesting stuff done with those characters. In the Dark Knight, Two-Face and the Joker, great compelling villains. You remember these villains, their motivations, the things that they said, the quotes, they were very, very compelling. Even in Rises, which is very lackluster of a movie. Well, until Bane. Well, Bane kind of was a disappointment because first of all, he was killed off too easily, and then we come to find out he was a lackey for Talia. But before that, he had some interesting ideas and motivations, I thought, but they just didn't really expound upon them. But what Nolan did with that franchise, he was able to take those characters and he was able to do something really, really fascinating with them, and something that made you remember these villains. And that's what I want from these Marvel villains. I hope they improve on them. I'm hoping that the next phase 2 in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is better, and hopefully, and even in the Fox Sony films, I hope that the villains are better. So yeah, that's just something I want to get off my chest. I hope I got my point across. I know I repeated myself a lot in this video, but just something I was talking about with friends, and something that's been on my mind for a while. So, bloody days, gory nights. Catch you guys on the flip side. Video responses. I'd like to hear other people's thoughts on this. What do you think about the Marvel villains, and what do you want from them? Do you think that their villains are okay the way they are? Do you think they could be improved upon? I'm really interested to hear other people's thoughts on this. I'm really hoping I get video responses more so than comments. So, yeah. Peace.